Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. How are you all? I'm Dan Salem. I'm live on the BuzzChomp YouTube channel, here to talk the NFL and specifically fantasy football with you. Before we dive too far in, I'm at the Dan Salem on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm going to go live at the Dan Salem on Facebook so we get our second audience involved. And 3, and 2, and 1. Hello, hello. I'm Dan Salem at the Dan Salem on Facebook. Over on Twitter and Instagram, same at the Dan Salem. And I'm currently live on the BuzzChomp YouTube channel. We're going to talk the NFL live like we do every week, Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific time, specifically fantasy football this week. We were off last week because of the America's birthday holiday. Cheers, America. Thank you. Thank you. And with July comes the countdown to fantasy football. If you are playing fantasy on Yahoo, then your league likely is open, or you can go join one. Now, you probably won't be drafting for quite some time. I know we will not be drafting until the very end of August, perhaps the very beginning of September even, because that's just how the cookie crumbles when you try to combine schedules of double-digit people. That being said, in my league in particular, we have keepers. We must make decisions. We can make trades because this is a recurring league with the same people. We play with our friends. This is great. So you're asking yourself, how do I win fantasy football? If you're in a league that you've been playing in multiple years, you definitely want to win. If you're going to join a league for the first time, you still want to win. This is a tough question. I will caveat with the following. You must get lucky to win fantasy football. So just set that aside. No matter who wins at fantasy football every season, they got lucky. So set it aside because you can't predict luck. You can only live in a place of good luck, and hopefully it breaks that way. Because players get injured, players break out, players slump. Some people fall short of expectations. Others you never expected will exceed them. You need the perfect combination to strike it rich, so to speak, with your team. So there's that caveat, right? There's luck involved. Like most games, luck follows around the person that was prepared and in the right place, ready to go. So you don't just get lucky. Same thing in life. If you're prepared and ready to accept it, then you get lucky because you've been prepared and you accept it when it shows its head. So if you're drafting first in your league, this is probably the hardest place to draft. We do an auction league, so I will focus on the auction. But the first rule of winning fantasy football, draft a great team. Now, this is not to say this is an obvious statement, correct? You need a star quarterback and a star running back. You can get by with second-class wide receivers. I don't recommend it, but wide receivers are not a replacement for running back and quarterback. The reason? We know who the star quarterbacks are going to be. Unless they get hurt, we can almost guarantee who's going to be great this season. Now, the second-year guys, the first-year guys, some of them are going to break out. The third-year guys, some of them are going to slump. Like I would avoid Jameis Winston because he's going to miss a few games, and his team stinks to begin with. Sure, he's got Mike Evans, but it's not. Mike Evans is a good pickup. So, the fact of the matter is, it's pretty easy to find star and high-quality wide receivers in the first month of the season. Someone that has a great week 1 and 2, grab them. Someone that has a great week 1, grab them. Because you can stream wide receivers. You can't stream running backs and quarterbacks. We kind of know who's going to be great at running back. There's going to be 1 or 2 guys that surprise us. And you'll see those people in the first month, and you better grab them. Quarterback, we pretty much know outside of the sophomores and rookies. And a couple of the third-year, fourth-year guys will slump. So you got to draft great guys, right? Focus on your quarterback and your running back. I personally go quarterback first because the difference at the top is rather uncanny. Yes, there's a large group of guys. You can get away with – so I guess I take it back. I go running back. I previously went quarterback first, right? But now there's a large group of players that do well at quarterback. So you need, and for my league in particular, you need two of them. So you don't want, if you have one quarterback league, go for the one big name quarterback. Don't go avoid Tom Brady. He's due in his career. I did great last year with Matthew Stafford and Phillip Rivers. Those would be two. They're not top 5 guys, but that's 2 top 10, top 15 quarterbacks. Rivers always outplays his value, so he's a great pickup. Whereas for running back, there's probably about 5 guys that you can really rely on. Ezekiel Elliott's one of them. Todd Gurley's another. They're both in stellar offenses. There's so if you have a top 5, if you have a top 3 pick, take a running back because there are fewer of them. There are fewer stars. There are fewer young stars. You never know when they're going to fall off the cliff. But if you can predict like a guy like Elliott who won't just yet, grab him. That's why everyone's excited about Saquon Barkley. But if you read any of ESPN, you see that they're a little nervous because of his breakaway speed. Now, the Giants have set up their offense for him to succeed. I think he's a great pickup in fantasy, but he's going to be very popular. I prefer Ezekiel Elliott. I prefer Todd Gurley. I prefer, what's his face? Is it Chris Johnson in Arizona coming off injury? I prefer these guys, especially Johnson. Nobody else there. Or David Johnson, not Chris Johnson. There's nobody else there in Arizona. He's the offense. That's awesome for fantasy. Teams like Denver love to run the football. And with Case Keenum, I'd look at the Denver's running game. The Jets, they need to run the football. Yeah, they're not big name running backs, but they're good pickups. None of the rookie quarterbacks piqued my interest. I took a flyer on Mitch Trubisky last season and then dumped him after a month because he wasn't doing anything. He may be worth a flyer this year, but you need somebody you can count on. You need somebody in a prolific offense like Jared Goff. I know. Like Russell Wilson, who is the whole offense for his team. So, assuming you're doing an auction, because auctions are way more fun. If you're snake drafting it and you don't pick first and you pick after the top 5, then you may not get the receiver or running back or quarterback you want. Then it may be worth it to go Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, because those 2 players stand well above the rest at wide receiver. Otherwise, I take a quarterback before they're gone, someone you can count on for points on a weekly basis. That is the hardest thing in fantasy football, is having 75% of your team full of players that you can actually rely on to score points every week. If you're at 50% or less, you're screwed. You need to have reliable scorers. I know, Maddie, you can't win without reliable scorers. And so with reliable scorers, the quarterback position is paramount. Who do you think is going to have a good offense this year? Aaron Rodgers always puts up good numbers. Matthew Stafford is on the will he, won't he table this season. I'm leaning towards will he because he always seems to get it done and surprise people. People are putting Ben Roethlisberger on the table with his wide receiver core. I think he gets it done one more year also. I think there are probably 10 quarterbacks that I would believe in. Outside of picking one of those top 5 running backs, top 3 running backs, I would grab your quarterback early because he'll be gone, and then you'll be stuck with Eli Manning, who may or may not be much of anything. You don't want Marcus Mariota. You don't want Ryan Tannehill. You don't want these guys because you can't count on them weekly. Patrick Mahomes, that's a reach until he's proven otherwise. Excuse me. So, rule number 1, I'll repeat it. Since you need to draft a strong team out the gate for week 1, you need to draft a player first that you can count on every week to score points. You can't have questions. 75% of your team needs to be reliable scorers, and that starts with the quarterback. So now we're going to talk about auction draft because this is way more fun. And snake drafts stink. They stink. So how much do you pay for a player in your auction? right? Oh, fixing it. I would overpay for that top running back, that top quarterback in a second. I wouldn't overpay for a top receiver because you can get a second-tier guy for dirt cheap by the end of the draft because everyone's not paying attention. There are a lot of number 2 receivers that will score you a lot of points. And if you have a few of them, you play the matchups with them. So you've got to spend the money on the top running back and or quarterback. So on my own team, I'll use an example. I finished 3rd last season, so I didn't win it all. But this philosophy is kind of paramount. Since we're keepers, I spent my money first because those are who I kept. On Ezekiel Elliott, one of the top 3 running backs, and Travis Kelce, the top tight end. Let's talk tight end for a minute because there are very few star tight ends, just like very few star running backs. Kelce is worth grabbing in the first round or overpaying for in an auction because he has been so far and away better than his peers at his position. This is a lock scorer almost every week. Not every week, so maybe like 13 out of 16 weeks he's going to score a ton. That's great. He got the end zone a lot. With a young quarterback in Kansas City, they're going to rely on the tight end. Maddie, please stop. Kareem Hunt, I don't know if he can repeat it in year 2. That's a more risk pick. I'd take Kelce over Hunt. So that's why Hunt was a top 5 running back, but he's a more risk pick because he only did it once. And fantasy is not real life. You can have a great season and an awful fantasy season. Don't forget that. Rule number 2, don't get attached to your lineup. Don't get attached to your roster. Every single player is expendable. Winning is all that matters. If you're playing in a keeper league, sure, stash a guy on your bench that you don't want to lose for next season. But winning is everything. There was no reason. If a player gets hurt week 1 and he's not going to return until week 10, there is no point in keeping him because that's the end of the play. Like, that's right before the fantasy playoffs. So if you have Aaron Rodgers and he gets hurt and he's going to be out for 10 weeks, drop him. Don't get attached. There is no point. You're wasting a roster spot. You're wasting time. You need to replace him ASAP. Now, if Aaron Rodgers is slumping for the first 2 or 3 weeks of this season, trade him because someone will still overpay for this guy thinking he'll just rebound. But don't ignore the trends. 1 week is an anomaly. 3 weeks is a trend. And fantasy is all about trends. Guys trend up, guys trend down. Normally, if you're good for 1 week, you're going to be good another week. Now, with wide receivers, they can have 1 big week, nothing, and then another big week. But the big week, it kind of points towards their team targeting them a lot. There are fluke weeks, so you'll miss. But don't get attached to your roster because you need to be adding and dropping people every single week. You've got to play the matchups. You have to figure out after week 1 what the bad defenses are and then get players that are playing against them. You probably are not going to – you're going to be inclined to want to keep your whole team after week 1. This is a mistake. At least add one guy that had a great week 1 that nobody saw coming and is available in free agency. Add one guy and drop one guy off your team that sucked. That like you reached on or let him go immediately. It'll teach you how to let go quickly and early in the season. You need that to succeed. Draft the star immediately in your draft. Don't get attached to your roster. 3, stream. Constantly be adding players and dropping as needed. I like trading. Trading is very hard. It's hard to get people to agree on value. It's hard to get people to let go of their favorites. 2-for-1s is pretty good if you can swing it one way or the other because you're sweetening the deal if you really need someone for your roster. It's not about how great a guy is. If you play in a 1 quarterback league and you have 2, you might not need that backup. Trade the backup, who could be Drew Brees on your team because you have Aaron Rodgers, for a starting running back because you don't have one. Make the trade. Get who you can in your draft and then make the trades. So like you have to take what's given to you, right? You're bidding on auctions and you lose a bid and you have no star running back. But you then make sure you win a bid on an extra star quarterback so you have something to trade. You need chips. So in the draft, it's about acquiring chips. You don't need to build your complete team in the draft. Week one's kind of a crapshoot. You don't really know who's going to show up, who's going to dominate, who's going to break out, who's going to star. There's 50% of the guys you can count on week one. Everyone else is a crapshoot. So you want all your chips so that you can make some deals. Because after week one, people are going to be panicking. You want to make some deals. So you need to not panic, but not be attached and make some deals. Because you collected chips in the draft, have as many great guys as possible, correct? Regardless of position. Now, I'm not saying you should shortchange yourself, but there's time between your draft and week one to make some deals. So grab that extra star quarterback if he falls to you, or if you can steal him in an auction. Grab that extra star running back if he falls to you. I mean, running backs are currency. You don't want to lose those guys. But if you can get Odell and Antonio Brown, maybe you keep them both. Maybe you swap one for a running back and a quarterback, because you need guys you can count on every week, and you need it as much of your roster as possible. Stars are excellent, but they don't win you your championship by themselves. You absolutely need 3 on your team. You absolutely do. Between 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and a tight end, you need 3 stars. But like I said, 75% that you can count on every week. All right. I guess that would I could amend this to say those are my 3 rules of how to win fantasy football. The 4th rule is plan to get lucky. The 5th rule is get lucky. If you don't plan to get lucky, then it's probably not going to happen for you. But you need to get lucky to win. So draft as many star chips as possible. Don't get attached to your roster. Stream players and change things up as frequently as possible every single week. I add at least 1 player every week and get rid of somebody every week. Plan to get lucky, then get lucky. Those are your 5 rules to win. Really 3, but 2 are fun. Questions. So you're probably wondering, there's not much going on in the NFL right now. Who should you avoid? Well, one of the news stories is LaShawn McCoy, who may or may not have beat his girlfriend. Photos don't look very encouraging, but he denies the allegations. All we know is the NFL does not take kindly to this, and there's likely a chance he'll miss part of the season. Or next season, depending on how the legal process plays out. Be wary of him. He has not been Mr. Reliable on the field anyways. I'm not quite sure what to think of him this season. This just makes me say, stay away. You can have him. Don't overpay for him. Not worth it. I pay for Kareem Hunt. I would not overpay for Kareem Hunt. I would not overdraft him because he had 1 good year. It's so hard to know what running back is. So hard to know. And Kansas City's offense scares me a little bit with Mahomes. The quarterbacks, I mean, Darnold's going to see the field for the Jets, my Jets, at some point, probably by October. And he'll do well, but I feel like he's 1 year away from being fantasy relevant. The same, I mean, in Cleveland, I don't know if he's going to see the field this season. I can't blank on his name, but he's not fantasy relevant. Arizona, Josh Rosen, I think he's fantasy relevant, but again, he might not start until October. So I think he might actually be fantasy relevant this year. He was the most pro-ready, and I'm kind of thinking yes. Allen in Buffalo, no. I'd stay away from the Buffalo Bills as much as possible outside of picking their defense. But, okay, I thought this could – okay. I'll wrap up with my final rule. We'll call this a bonus because I thought it was a given, but apparently it's not because I see it every year. The last 2 picks should be your kicker and your defense. I got stuck overpaying for a kicker last year because I was up bidding him in the auction. And it actually worked out to my advantage because he was the top kicker in the league. So I got lucky. But be careful. Outside of a few kickers, they're all basically the same. Outside of a few defenses, which we have no clue about before the year, they're all pretty much the same. The defense should be your last pick. The kicker should be your second to last or third to last pick if you're getting a little antsy about filling the spot. If you really want New England Patriots kicker, Okay, I guess draft him a little bit early because he tends to always score. But no, last. Get them both last. All right, those are my 5 and a bonus. Really 3, and then 3 fun ones. My rules for fantasy football, how to win. I'm Dan Salem. I'm live every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. The BuzzChomp YouTube channel and over on Facebook at the Dan Salem. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Dan